Everyone's Classic DM, and we're going to continue our classic Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master Guide series, and we're going to move on to G3, one we've never done before, but I know in my lifetime this has been one of the most coolest dungeons I've ever ran through, and I got an opportunity to run it maybe like 6 times from 1977 to the current day. Now, this is a really big dungeon, it's 3 levels, but the first part is probably the most exciting part of the entire adventure. Now, I'm going to break this series down into a couple of pieces, so you can jump to another piece if you want to, and I'll put some timestamps in there. The goal of this first one, just like we did with the Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl, is to give you an overview. We'll talk about the history, talk about the maps, locations, some discrepancies on cartography, some details about setting up the adventure, and then we'll start doing like we were doing with our Hidden Shrine of Timoashan, where we kind of go through like areas 1 through 5, or areas 6 through 10, like I did in the White Plume Mountain stuff. Those will be separate videos, and I'll try to link them really cleanly. It's going to take me a few days to put this series together, while I got a few days of loose fun time to do things. So let's go ahead and jump in, all right? So the Hall of Fire Giant King is G3. This series of G1, Setting of the Hill Giant Chief, G2, Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl, G3, the Hall of Fire Giant King, were all released in 1978 at Origins. And Origins is like a RPG event held in Geneva during the early days of TSR, right? So you may remember this from the other video. You know, the Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl, and they were all like released like right after the tournament happened, right? So the cover here, this monochromatic cover, is the format they used for years. 1978. Now in 1981, D&D's been taken off pretty well. I'm in high school at this point. I think I'm like a sophomore in high school. And they released this Against the Giants. So it's G1, G2, and G3. You can get that. You can see some of the trade dresses change. The TSR logos change. They talk about how it was an Origins tournament in 79 and 78, etc. They're making good money. They're trying to upgrade. You know, some new artists are brought on board like Rosloff and Willingham and stuff like that. And then in 99, like I mentioned before, my buddy Ed Stark was a creative director at Wizards of the Coast phase of TSR's final death throes before the Monty Cook era, and in 2nd edition they released this Against the Giants, the liberation of Geoff, or Jeff, however you want to say it. Okay, let's get into some more interesting details about this module because it's big. The first thing you want to know is it has 3 levels. Entrance is always going to be like where the players first arrive. There's no other way for them to come to this adventure except through the entrance level. Below the entrance level is the 2nd level. So unlike a office building where floor 1, floor 2, and floor 3 is vertically stacked, 2nd level is the dungeon level, you would think of it, where you've got walls and things like that. The 3rd level is a level even further below that, so it's mostly natural caverns, and that's where a route that connects to D1, Descent into the Depths of the Earth, which then ultimately connects to D2, oh gosh, Shrine of the Kutoa, and then the classic I've done a video on before, D3, the Vault of the Drow, or Drow, however you want to say it, and then ultimately to clean the Demon Web Pit. So the Drow, or Drow, or however you want to say it, have always been the undermining force controlling everything from the very beginning, and the presence of them in the end of the Setting of the Hill Giant Chief is just alluded to. In the Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl, you have a little bit more information, and this one you actually can have encounters with High Priestess, and a lot more hands-on interacting going on between the giants and the Drow, or Drow, how you want to say it. I'm going to call it Drow. That's how I always say it. To give you an idea how these maps stack, this is something quite interesting. A lot of the maps, when you look at them, page 1 and page 2 are the inside, the monochromatic covers. It looks, you just assume that one part of the map is on top of the other. That's not actually the case. There will be sections in the entrance level over here, which is faded out with a yellow box around it, where the passageway that leads down, which is right around here, if you can see my mouse hand cursor moving back and forth, it leads down, and then the little blow's kind of like juxtaposed but beneath it. Now, they never truly kind of define how far that is, right? That could be shifted way down to the southwest if you look at the top of the screen as being north a lot further. I just made an assumption like, well, it's pretty much, let's just say it connects clean, right? If it connects clean, you can see how one level is below the other and shifted forward further north. Remember, in all maps, Google Maps, architectural maps, D&D maps, north is always to the top, unless you are part of the 2nd edition version, which flopped everything on its side, which I thought was a disaster. Now, on the right-hand side here, we see which says 2nd level and then 3rd level. So the blue line is helping you line up between what the second level is and how the third level is beneath that. Now, I made the third level not translucent, so you can see there's a connection between these two levels as well. So over here is where the connection from the second level up to the first level, which is over here. But if you see, this is the connection down to 3 and even further. So if you think about how this stuff, it's kind of like 3 sets of cards kind of flapped on a table. You have the entrance level, and then up to the northwest and below is the second level, and then up to the northeast from the second level is a third level. This is something you encounter on the Hidden Shrine of Tomoeshan and some other dungeons where it's like, wait a minute, it's the top level and it's down, but it's shifted because they're using sloping passageways. They're not using parking garage stairs that have a landing and keep circling in place. All right, I just want to mention that because it's kind of interesting detail to remember. There's no situations where there's a grate where someone can drop something or slide down. There's no elevators, there's no chutes or anything like that. And you don't have to worry about whether area 19 on the one level is above area 20 in the one below. But it gives you an idea of how these things are kind of laid out and where they might actually fit. If you were to create your own volcanic mountain range, you need to have an idea like how much space you need to work with. Now, you heard me mention before the second edition rebooted version, which is the silver anniversary version that's over here on the right hand side, right? This is where they redid the entire set of modules. They didn't change anything, they just made new maps. They chose for some reason to put this ridiculous header across everything with a bunch of stupid villages on it. I do not know why that happened. Maybe it's just considered a publishing cool factor back then. But you can see the maps were turned on their sides to fit so they could take advantage of 2-column text and then a map at the bottom of the page, which kind of took away from the fun factor. D&D and Wizards of the Coast have done this ever since, almost exclusively. Like, you buy any modern 5th edition campaign guide or anything. They did a Frost one or Rime Maiden one, and there's these beautiful maps and they're freaking small. I mean, you're going to go scan them and try to blow them up and figure it out. It's kind of a pain. The scale didn't change. In second edition, it's still, 1 square equals 10 feet. Just like in the original maps, but they're turned on their side. So north is to the left. So if you're really used to playing these things this way, I recommend just printing these out and keeping them on hand. You can make your own notations on it. If you try to use these here, maybe you just like how they look, but everything's flipped on their side. The only improvement really is there's a touch more detail in the second edition ones done in, like, what is this, 1999? Yeah, 1999, right before third edition comes out, like within a year. But Pentar's maps, they are the go-to. I mean, if you want to truly have a great adventure, you need Pentar's maps. I mean, these maps they're okay. They're a little bit on the squiggly, loose side of things, kind of like Dyson logos and stuff. They have a little bit of like gibble bits of rock and stuff like that, but they don't really have the kind of detail you would expect. Like, there's a bunch of these like vault tomb things in here, and there's a few more notations about where things are and X's, but it still feels like, old school kind of junk if you think about it. And here's the lowest most level. So Pentar's maps are just the bomb. You really got to get these. And he made these with grids and without grids, and they're designed for people to play virtual tabletop. Now, why do you need these, right? You could print these on cardstock for reference, or you could print sections of it. Like, for example, I took this one section of the first level and blew it up so you can see that, like, where he added some detail for an armory, and he never adds too much. You can tell where the doors are. The grid is a 5-foot grid, so it works with miniatures, but his stuff is brilliant. I mean, support him, okay? This is a video game industry, artist in Slovenia. There's not a lot of awesome artist jobs over in Europe. I know myself after working at Crytek for 5 years in Germany and Budapest. I mean, this guy put labor of love, effort into all his D&D maps. He was probably a 5th edition kid, but his stuff is great. You really want to have these. I mean, like I've said in the previous video for the Glacial Rift or the Frost Giant Jarl, you do want to kind of make sure you've really, your chicken scratch notes, which I like to do, are being done here. But if you want to make some cutouts and print on cardstock for an area to show to the players and you're playing Theater of the Mind, these colorful ones are just so nice to work with. And let's take a look. This is the second level below where those vaults are, where he's gone ahead and like taken some artistic liberty and put relief carvings on these like tomb vault type things. And if you go down to the level below that, even just a little crappy little room like this, he's read the description of the maps he knows how many enemies are in here, and he made these Arctic little bear rug sleeping bags, a little fireplace and some bags, and a little white polar bear rug. And it's just a cave. There's like rope and cask, and I mean, this is the kind of detail you want in D&D, right? And I just can't stop harping enough on how great his maps are. If you don't know anything about this kid's stuff, go look it up. All right, now we're going to come to a little bit of a dilemma. Maybe you know the answer. If you know the answer, leave a comment, because I know some of you guys and girls that hang out with the channel are old school, real old school, and you paid attention to the Dragon magazine articles, or you read somewhere where someone clarified it. Some of you even have like signed versions of Gary Gygax's books, which is brilliant. But there's some discrepancies about the location. And let me explain how this happened. In the beginning, when we were kids, this thing came out in '78. We buy it for $5 at our local gaming store in Tallahassee, Florida. You know, we run home, we play this thing, and we figure, oh, this is the Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl isn't on Darlene's map. But it's supposed to be in the Crystal Mist Mountains, which you can see with my little hand cursor here is up in this area. And this down here is called the Hell Furnaces. So you can imagine on this volcano, there's little baby volcanoes that Darlene has painted on here with little puffs and plumes. You're like, wow, that must be down there somewhere. And when you read about it, it just says, in effect, you know, Muspelheim. But there's nowhere on there that really says Muspelheim. And you have to read the Gazetteer or the books that came with the World of Greyhawk original maps and try to decipher where they are. But if you go to DM's Guild, which is effectively drive-through RPG, all right, there's this section they've been doing where this person, their name is Shannon Appelkline, which is a guy. He lives in Hawaii, I believe. I don't know him. Has researched things and written the history about, hey, this module was first released here. It was once described by Gary Gygax as being his homebrew campaign. So this person was the editor-in-chief of RPG.net, which is a defunct 404 website, as far as I know. I tried looking for it, couldn't find it anymore. Here's what it says. Like its predecessor, Hall is set in Greyhawk, or at least it was part of Gygax's original campaign, and later supplements placed it in Greyhawk. To be surprised, it was later placed in the Hell Furnaces of Greyhawk, Hex M5 138. Now, all you remember this from school, right? X first and then Y for XY axis. So if you go to your Darlene map and find M5 and draw a vertical line straight down like I've done here in yellow, and if you find 138 and draw a horizontal line on the x-axis and a vertical line from here, you would find this thing is in the middle of Steric. You think to yourself, huh? Well, it's underground though, right? It's not really close to the surface. I don't know. If you read the actual module, the description of where it really is sounds like you could be on the surface and find this passageway that just leads right down to the front door, like near all this lava flows and all this kind of stuff. So why is there a difference between this location and where you think it would be? And also, why is it different than what Anna B. Meyer decided to do in her cartography? Would love to know the answer to this. But I'm not criticizing party A versus party B. You can put the damn place wherever the hell you want. No one cares, right? But if you were to zoom in, you know, this is about where the XM5 138 lines up to be with X and Y coordinates, which doesn't make any sense because it looks like it's in a green field, right? But it could be underground, but that's in the Jotuns. That's not the Hell Furnaces. So it seems misplaced. So maybe there's a typo, maybe meant to say, you know, M3 138, God knows. Let's go look at Anna B. Meyer stuff, which is brilliant. And I mentioned before, you know, this cartography she has was accessible online. Just type in Anna B. Meyer, Greyhawk. This stuff is really good. It's really awesome. It's totally great. It's great to print from, everything. If you go look at her map, she has placed it exactly right here, right? And you can see this is way down south. This is in the edge of the Crystal Mist Mountains. It's below the Yeomanry to the west of the Sea Princes, hold of the Sea Princes. And you can kind of look at the landscape here of the edge of the shoreline. There's like this large port here, and things dip in this peninsula. And they have a little bit of a bay here, kind of like a Jacksonville, Florida bay. And they have this line. And there's a little bit of hills happening here. And here's Berghoff, right? In here, and then you look from here, if you draw a line straight down all the way up through here, you can see, okay, that would be the location. Here's where that would be in the World of Greyhawk map. Let's scroll down here and go to the next one. So where would that line up? Well, that would be more over here, right? You can see I've got a little inset here. And if there's a little town right here, you can line this up, I believe I think it's called Hokar. I'm probably mispronouncing. I mispronounce everything. It's part of the fun. So she has actually placed a little icon there that says Hall of the Fire Giant King, a little purple outpost. So if you look here, you can see Hall of the Fire Giant King, and here's Hall bridges here, you know, along this river that comes to this little lake in Berghof, which is probably like inspired by Austria and Germany from World War II, where Hitler had the eagle's nest and shit like that, or his house in Berghof, but who knows. But in essence, this is Hokar here. A straight line from Hokar was above it, and you go down below, and then you have this line here that lines up with this, lines up below Hall bridges. So you have this kind of like horizontal line. You can sort of figure out where it is. Interesting point. It doesn't really compromise anything, but I just find it interesting. I just think it's cool that, like, well, where really is it, and how do we know that's where it really is? And now if you're playing this, you'll read this in the front end. We're going to get to that in a second. It talks about the two ways to get to the adventure. One of them is from kind of this magical method from the glacial rift of the frost giant Jarl, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And the other one is like, oh, if you've arrived here by hippogriff or horse, that means you just like traveled over land, flew over land, landed somewhere, took some horses, went down a cave, hung a left, and boom, here it is. Because the module talks about like where the players have a little place to hide and recover their spells, a little holdout cave. The same theme that you saw in the Steadying the Hill Giant Chief and the Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl. This is because back in those days, it was assumed that the party, you know, it takes a long time to get your spells and stuff back. It's not like 5th edition. It's not a long rest or a 10-minute break like I suggest in my house rules. It's hard. So you go into the dungeon, you kill a bunch of shit, you get kind of wounded, and you blow up some spells. Remember, Cure Light Wounds and Cure Serious and Critical Wounds, they don't do much. I mean, you can roll a bunch of 3s on Cure Critical Wound, and it's not going to help a level 9 fighter. So you go in there, do as much as you can, and then you retreat to your hidey hole somewhere like a cave or a place where your mounts are hidden, so you can put all your loot and hide things away, and you'll be safe, right? And this is a recurring trend. I remember this first happened even in Surtek's game Wizardry, and there's been a remake of that game. It's on Steam. You go in the dungeon, go as far as you can, and run back out and go back to town and recover. So in the old days, and if you've played Baldur's Gate 1 and Baldur's Gate 2 or the Throne of Baal or Icewind Dale 1, Icewind Dale 2, you know, they have a rest button, and sometimes you can have random encounters. So that's an interesting point. Let's talk about that a little bit more detail. If you go into the start section, you know, the party might arrive before the huge obsidian valves, which bar the entrance to the hall by means of the transporter found in the lair of the frost giant Jarl. And I'm going to talk about that in a second too. In this case, they'll have to search to find a place of safety to rest and recover their strength before their forays into the hall. That's option one. Option two, if the group journeyed hence by some other form, horseback, mounted on hippogriffs, etc., they will have noticed such a place about 2 miles distant from Snur's Sooty place, meaning the hall. This hidden refuge will prove to be safe from detection as long as the party leaves no plain trail to it. So you got two possible ways. You came from the glacial rift of Frost Giant Jarl by the transporter, or you figured out where this place is, or got a little map and a mark on the map, and you're just traveling overland through the mountains, flying, whatever you're going to do here, right? So here's another description. The ravine, which is near the safe cave, leads directly to the spiny, broken heap of slag, which is indicated as the side of the hall by their map, or obvious to them otherwise, for it has a wide, well-trod path leading up to 2 great slabs of black stone, obsidian portals, which give access to Snur's hall. But these gates will open to the party if one of the members has fire giant strength, etc., etc., etc. Each valve, which is the door, 29 feet tall. Now, if you look at the picture at the end, it doesn't quite look 29 feet. It's not really that big of a deal. 10 feet wide, 3 feet thick. I mean, a front door, an ADA compliant bathroom door, a door, a 3 foot by 6 foot 8 door in architecture is 36 inches. You know, your countertops in your house are about 36 inches tall. So a 3 foot thick, you know, obsidian, black stone, not steel, black stone, that's heavy. Now, maybe it's got great hinges on it and doesn't squeak much, but this is why I wanted to mention these details, because, okay, there's a cave, it's about 2 miles away, there's a path, and it leads you to the entrance, okay? Or you've been teleported. I'll go to the teleporting stuff in just a moment here. So here's some more details. The plain about is most evil and drab appearing. The sky is gray and filled with sooty clouds. A distant volcano can be seen, and far to the south, a glowing river of molten lava moves sluggishly down a slope and out of sight. It is hot, and the air smells heated rock and metal. The ground is full of cinders and sharp rocks. The place is lit by night with dim red light from flaming gases shooting forth from the earth and from the molten rock, right? So this gives you an idea of like the setting, what the hell furnaces would be like. It's not going to be in the green field of Steric. I think that's a typo on that we saw at DM's Guild. The pile of lava, slag, and jutting black rock, which houses the Hall of Snore, is a steeply rising hill about 300 feet high at its summit. It is difficult to scale, but the party may do so if they desire. And I didn't highlight this one part, but everywhere vents of smoke and the holes spurt out jets of flame from time to time. So you have this interesting description here, like there's this 300-foot high, slag pile of lava going up in the air. That's about a height of a football field, right? If you were to take a football field and tilt it up, United States football, that's about how big it will be. But there's also a ravine, right, where there's the cave, and there's this path that leads up to two great slabs of black stone, a wide, well-trod path leading up. So there must be like a crack in this 300-foot hill or whatever. I doubt very seriously you go to the top and then go down a bunch of great steps to then get to the stone slab. But you need to figure that out, because you've got to remember, like, okay, everyone knows that the entrance to the adventure is this classic image that's on the back of the module. And I'll show it to you in just a second here. Let's go to John Pentar's map real quick. We go to the first level. This down here, low left-hand corner, where this big door is, to the left where it says John, this is the entrance. And in fact, this area here is the best part of the entire adventure, in my personal opinion. So you need to figure those kinds of things out. And of course, you're a dungeon master. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. You can make up whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. But let's bring this back. Let's rewind a little bit. Going back for G2, this teleporter. So in the very, very last room of the Glacial Rift of Frost Giant Jarl, you had the big, showdown with the Jarl himself. I think it was like Grognor or something like that. It has this room, and there's this little secret passages. And here's one of them is escape tunnel, right? But the escape tunnel doesn't lead to G3. It's just an escape tunnel, Darth Vader style, right? Behind the wall hangings on the eastern portion of the north wall. Remember, this is in the Glacial Rift. This is not in G3. Is a hidden escape tunnel. It is a natural passage about a mile long, which turns south and exits to the base of a mountain glacier area, out of sight of any near the rift. The alcove to the northwest, this is about talking about the room that you're in before, appears empty, but if examined with care, there's a 1 in 6 chance. I hate that. I never do that in my games. I just say, when you look in there, you see it. I don't ever make it where something physical and obvious is like unseen with a 21.75% chance of being seen, or whatever the number is. They will note a thick iron bar protruding from the wall about 10 feet above the floor. Perfect height for a frost giant to grab, right? The bar moves downward and transports whatever or whoever is standing on the floor of the alcove, not hanging on the bar, right? It's not a jump up. At 10 feet in the air is tied. The rim of a basketball goal is 10 feet in the air. If you could dunk a basketball and get your hand above 10 feet in the air. So there's a bar protruding from the wall. If you pull the bar down, anyone who's standing in the alcove, which is like a teleporter pad, like in Star Trek, right? They'll be teleported, right? The place they can be teleported to is only 50 feet away from the entrance. So that's a pretty convenient way to get there. But in the old days, the idea was that you go into the place and then you go find a place to hide. So you're being kind of teleported right to the front door. There could be a guard out there smoking a cigar, hanging. What the hell? These dudes just teleported and warped in. But do they expect this to happen frequently? Like, is it marked on the ground? You could add some flavor there. I don't think this is designed to be a only an escape, but it could be. For the Glacial Rift or Frost Giant Jarl, it could be just, just the Jarl and his bride, the only two that we know about this. Or maybe the Drow go back and forth, but the Drow can't jump up and grab a bar that's 10 feet in the air. They can levitate to it. So it's interesting. The players got to figure a way to grab a bar 10 feet in the air. Most ceilings in a house are 8 feet, or an apartment 9 feet, etc. But 10 feet's as high as the lip of a basketball goal. So think about that. If your players played before, did they use a map? Remember, there's that infinity chain thing that teleports you from Steading to Glacial Rift. So Gygax is using a teleportation magical thing to get you from point A to point B to get on with it, right? They don't want the party in an adventure in a tournament module taking a trip that takes 75 hexes and they're dicking around in some town somewhere. Okay. All right. We're getting too much detail here. Let's go to this next part here. So these are details that are important. And why are they important? Because of thieves and monks. Ceiling heights mean wall heights, right? So in the dungeon levels, and when there's shaped passages, they're vaulted 30 feet high. Halls and chambers are 40 to 60 feet high. So hallways, it's a 30-foot tall ceiling and it's vaulted. Like, think of it just a big triangular vault, like you might see in an Egyptian tomb, not a barrel vault. These guys wouldn't be able to do that kind of workmanship. All the doors are iron. So remember the front door was obsidian, 3 feet thick. Now all the interior ones are like worked and made out of iron. Opening requires giant strength. So normal possibilities of opening resisting doors are cut in half. D&D did this all the time. There was always this open the doors based on your strength, roll once, roll twice. You can play into this. It makes it harder to egress and run and get to another room real quickly when you can't open the door quickly. So, if you're trying to have a really nasty tactical fight and the doors can become a problem, it also becomes a problem when someone tries to like spike a door closed, which is something we used to do a lot when we were little kids. We would find a place to hide. If the door wasn't kicked in or something, it was a big oak door, we would try to find a way to spike the door closed so we could camp in a room and no wandering monsters would be able to come in. Sometimes they come up and bash on the door like, oh god, I'm getting off on a tangent, sorry. Anyway, but it's something to think about. It can affect gameplay. The reason why the ceiling heights and wall heights are important because a lot of people that play thieves look at what they can do. They think about backstabbing, hiding in shadows, moving silently, picking pockets, and climb walls. So they think of ways to climb the walls and jump down like Splinter Cell and attack someone from above, right? Now there's a note here that Gygax wrote about the lower level, which is all the natural caves, not these areas that have doors and stuff. His perspective on the game is like, a person in the party is drawing a map based upon what the dungeon master is describing. Now, in the modern world, we present and draw the map for you because we want the continuity of the rooms to room, and the mapper can make a mistake. But when we used to play, we used to mark stuff with a dry erase marker board on dry erase marker pens on Mylar over a big grid on a big 4x8 piece of plywood. This massive room was amazing. Joe Wisniewski was our DM. He was awesome. So that's something to think about as well. So these are all the things you need to know about when it comes to, okay, now you finally got your party to this 27-foot tall door. Doesn't quite look it, does it? The idea of your players arriving by hippogriff or whatever, just leaving them outside the door is definitely dramatic. But what we want to do next with the series, now I'll give you a good overview here. This is what I want to do is I want to go through areas 1 through 9, which is the coolest part of the entire dungeon. It starts off with the entrance. You've got this massive, there's that pair of Ettins here. There's the throne room. The Fire Giant King himself will be here. His bride is down here. Her handmaidens are here. They got his room, and he's got, there's a pyro hydra in here and his treasure room. Like everything you need to do. If you just wanted to run this as a one shot, you could do Ombi up here at 13, A and B and 14. That's cool too. But you could literally like take this dungeon and slice it off right here and have a really cool hold, like maybe like a lieutenant or something. But we're going to do that in the next video. I didn't want these to get too long, but I do want to put time and energy, make sure the slides are good and give you good information. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for popping by. Please like, subscribe, share. I'm trying to get higher subscriber count. I'm trying to make more content on the channel. It's really fun for me. And I hope you guys really enjoy the videos. If you have something you want to see more of or less of, let me know. I'll always accommodate. And when people leave good comments and stuff, I reply meaningfully. So leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Tell your story about what you did when you played. And let's just have fun living down memory lane here with Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.